Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 30-Minute Gospel. My name is Chris, and I'll be your host as we open and study the Bible together. I'll be reading from the King James Version, but you can feel free to read whichever translation that best suits you. I would just recommend that you have a version that does not delete verses from God's holy word. Each video will be a biblical teaching of 30 minutes or less. My material is completely 100% free, so you can share these videos with family members, co-workers, friends, or anyone you know who either needs to hear the Word of God or wants to study in a casual setting. The gospel is free to all, so I will not accept any donations, gifts, or beg viewers for money. Please give to your local church or Christian organization of your choosing. You can reach out to me with questions or comments at 30minutegospel@gmail.com, but please keep your message respectful and cordial. Well, welcome again, everybody. Hold on one second. Welcome again, everybody, to another edition of the 30-Minute Gospel. These next set of videos, I don't know how many videos it's going to take. I'm just giving a warning right offhand. We're going to be discussing some controversial issues, okay? Because this video series is going to be titled Male and Female Nature Relationships in the Bible, okay? Now, there are some truths out there. There's a lot going on, and they want to call it in the manosphere and the woman sphere, things. There are truths in there, but some people have been taking it too far. Okay, I want to preface this with this. This whole thing, if you've ever heard of this thing called MGTOW that's in there, it's called men going their own way. That is anti-biblical. Okay, what they're basically saying is men don't get married and just don't even involve yourself in a relationship, don't have children, don't do this. That is anti-biblical because God made woman for man, and he said for them to is to basically reproduce, multiply, fill the earth. That's what he was saying to do. Okay, and so these people are literally way too far out there. Okay, there are some men that they say don't get married, but just have a girlfriend or something like that on the side. You just, or you kind of, pick up women and you do this. That is absolutely horrible as well, because now you're committing fornication, okay, which is an anti-biblical concept. But and so you definitely should not be doing that. Men should not be going their own way. That's ridiculous. Okay, they should not be players. Essentially, that's ridiculous as well. Women should not be treated as objects. They should not be treated in that way. Okay, if you really care for a woman, you guys should be married in a family and having children. You should not be in a relationship and it's not marriage. It's not going to be sanctioned by God. Okay, sanctioned by God. Okay, so. But that doesn't mean that there are not truths that when you hear them, these are some harsh truths that we're going to talk about. But many of these things they will talk about. They many in the dating communities now, these relationship coaches and everything that's out there, they present it from a evolutionary standpoint, and in biology they just say, well, this has occurred in men and women over millions of years of evolution to act this way, or do these things. It's not, evolution has nothing to do about it. It is actually sin that has to do with it. As an evolution has nothing to do with it. It is part of the sin nature. Okay, so we're going to be talking about this stuff, and some of these things might be. I just will be friends after this. I promise you. If you're watching this, we will be friends. I will not put up with any of the MGTOW guys. I will not put up with any of the dating coach advices where they tell you just to just to to basically play around with women and have a lot of these guys have had like 10 or 20 relationships with girls. They just pick up girls. One guy was saying he's got like 10 girls in a dating rotation right now. That's ridiculous. And he's 50 something years old and he's dating 19-year-olds. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You should be in a family and married and him having children. That's what you should be doing. Okay, it doesn't mean that there isn't some truths that they speak, which is what we're going to be talking about. In this subject, we're going to be talking about how men and women act, part of their natures, and how that has come about. Okay, so to start this off, like I said, this is about male and female relationships. We are going to go to Genesis chapter 3. Okay, if you go with me to Genesis chapter 3, this is the, if you want to say it, the genesis of where this all started. Okay? This is the genesis of where this all started. Okay? Now Genesis chapter 3, verse 16 talks about this. Now, this is right after the initial sin, okay, where Eve is Eve is has eaten the apple or whatever fruit from the tree and given it to her husband, and God is speaking to Eve and talking about the curse that is on her, about everything, and what's going to happen with Adam. So if you go to Genesis chapter 3 verse 16, it says this, okay? Many of you know this verse. It says, "Unto the woman he said," speaking of God, "I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow shalt thou bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee." Now, I want to preface this with this. Many men have used this verse to say, "Well, to run their house like a dictator." That is completely not true. You should be running your house, if you're a male, and we'll talk about this, like you're the president and your wife is the vice president. That's how you should be running it. You should not be running it where your mouth's a dung and everybody else is a servant in your household. Okay? Your wife is your servant. Now, your wife should be serving you. That is correct, but she shouldn't be treated as a servant. There's difference. She should be serving you out of love and admiration and submission to you, but you shouldn't be having to put fear in her in order to do that. Okay? It's just the way that works. Okay? But I want you to understand this. It says, "Thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee." Okay? Now I want you to understand it. There's a word there, desire. That's a Hebrew word. What that word actually means is, in the Hebrew, it means to control. Okay? It means to control. That's what it means. So what it's meaning there is saying that you want to control your husband essentially, but he will be the head. Okay, that is what it is what their desire is. And if you read it, that Hebrew word for desire right there is only used one other time in the Bible. One other time is that word used in the Bible. Okay, one other time in the Old Testament, and it's in Genesis chapter 4, the next chapter over, talking about Cain and Abel. Okay, this is when God is speaking. This is verse 7. It says verse 4, it's chapter 4 verse 7. God speaking to Cain, and he says, "If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him." Okay, so it's saying that sin is desire is for him. It's the same Hebrew word. What does that mean? It's meaning sin wants to control you, but he was telling sin, he goes, sin wants to control you, but you must master it. See, that's what God tells us all the time. We have to master our sin. Are we going to sin? Yes, but it shouldn't be controlling us. Does that make sense? That's the problem, is sin controls us and causes these problems. Okay, but that's what it's talking about. So what we're talking about here with this is, you see, this, the sin wants to control us. And it's that same Hebrew word that's used in Genesis 3:16 talking about the woman. He says, sin, or you shall desire, your desire shall be for your husband, meaning control. Okay? So what happens is, ever since sin has occurred, okay, women have, well, let's just put it this way. God has established the family order. Okay, we know that He established it. It was God, man, wife, children. Now that may anger some people. I understand, because it's not politically correct in this society. But that's the way God established it. Okay? It's the way God established it. He established man, God, man. He talks about this. Or the head of man is Jesus Christ. And then the head of woman is man. He talks about that. That's the way he established it. He created man first. Okay? He created man first. And he gave man the authority to name all the animals. He didn't give the woman that authority. He gave the man. That's why Adam names Eve, because he said, it says, and Adam called his wife Eve. He got to name her. That's what he did. You see, the man was responsible. Okay? That's the way it happens. When a husband is the head of a household, God holds the man responsible for anything that happens. He did not hold Eve responsible for sin and death in this world. He held Adam responsible for it. He looked at Adam and said, "What did you do? Who told you were naked? What did you do?" And more punishment. See, people say, well, women have their pain in childbirth. That's basically the only thing women brought into this world. Man brought sin and death into this world. And we have to work the sweat of our brow to earn our bread and eat. We have to do that. It doesn't say the woman has to work. It says the man has to work. Now, can women work? Yes. They can, if there's an agreement between the husband and the wife to do so. But the man always has to work. He's required to, unless something's there. He can't, he's not physically or mentally able to, like some people, a male might be, shot in the head or something like that, and they survive, but they're mentally not capable of working. But if they're able to work, they should be working. That's why men die before women, because we have to do the hard work in the fields. Usually most of the hard work that's done is done by men. The hard work. The lifting of heavy things and these sorts of things that wears out the body quicker. And the stress that we have. But we're the ones responsible. So that's the way it goes. It goes God, Jesus, man, woman, children. That's the order. Okay? So man is in charge. God says that of the family unit. He's the final say-so when decisions are made. But what happens is that ever since the fall, God has told Eve what would happen with the female descendants from her because of sin. He said that their desire is to try to take the reins of control of a relationship from men. That's going to be their goal because of sin. All right? How do they do this? They do it through emasculation. Okay? They do it through emasculation. Okay? What's an example? Some of you might be saying, what is emasculation? Emasculation is where a woman tries to tear down men. Okay? Women, all women, and would trust me, this isn't just going to be about the problems women have. We're going to get into the men problems too. I'm starting it right now. This could be several videos. We're going to talk about men because men have big problems as well. Okay? But I'm trying to explain what happens. All women try to tear down men. They will do it instinctively because it's part of the sin nature. Okay? They will do, especially if they're not Christian. If they're not Christian, if they're not Christian, they will definitely try to emasculate men. But even if they're Christian women, good Christian women, they will still do it instinctively. Just like a man, we'll talk about how they lust, but they will do it instinctively to all men. Mothers emasculate their sons. Women co-workers may emasculate men co-workers. Wives will try to emasculate their husbands. What you're saying? They try to tear men down and belittle them as part of their sin nature because they want to gain that control over them. And wives will try to do this in the marriage thinking this is what they want. They think they want that because they want to be the center. Okay? They want that leadership role. Now, what is emasculation? Okay? I'll give you an example. Let's just say, a man is uh, building, a shed. We'll say a shed in his backyard for his lawn tools and stuff like that. He's never built this stuff before, let's just say. So he's building the shed, and he builds the shed, and then when he gets done, he's so proud of it, and he calls his wife. He comes up and says, "Honey, come look at the shed I built." Okay? And then the wife looks at the shed and goes, "That door frame is 2 inches short than it needs to be." That is emasculation. Or that shed is not where I wanted it to be. It should be over there. That is emasculation. Okay, does that make sense? Women don't do it. Maybe a few might really do it on purpose because they don't like men, but they will do it, and most of the time they are not conscious that they do it. It's part of their sin nature. Just like I said, with men, when we look after, it's just like if you see a woman, if a guy sees a woman in a bikini on a beach, he'll just naturally look. It's just it just is in our brain, and then we start thinking about her, what she looks like without her clothes off, and what she looks like with her clothes off. It's part of our sin nature. We have to get it under control. We've got to get it under control, but it's almost like instinctive. Most guys know what I'm talking about. Most girls would know what I'm talking about here as well. They instinctively do it, but they don't mean to do it. It's not something that, it's like Paul said. He goes, "What I want to do, I don't do, but what I don't want to do, I do." And in the same way, that's the way emasculation works with women, is they're doing something they don't want to do, but it comes instinctively in them, basically usually how they're feeling at the moment. If they're not feeling good at the moment, they will act out like that, and they don't mean anything of it. And most guys will experience that. They'll be, it's almost like and I've talked to many men about this, almost like the woman goes into a trance a little bit, like she's just like what, and then she wakes up out of it and she's like, I said that. It's like they don't even realize they're saying it. And I've talked to men about that, like she may say that shed's supposed to be over there, and blah blah blah, and maybe like a day later it's just like, you're like, why'd you say that? You're like, they're like, I said that. They don't even realize they said it. It's because it's like their sin nature coming out. Okay. So that emasculation is kind of like the tearing down of the man, and what they hope to, and what they're doing. See, I've been emasculated by a female coworker one time. I was doing some math and I didn't add it right. I was just kind of doing quick math in my head, and I said, okay, I was like 5 plus 6, that's 12, and the lady coworker goes, actually, it's 11. You see, that was an emasculation. I don't hold that against her because it just naturally came out of her. She didn't, she wasn't doing it on purpose. Does that make sense? It's part of the sin nature. Okay? It's part of the sin nature. All right. And so these are little things. Now, I'm not talking about. Now, some of you might say, well, if somebody steals, that's part of their sin nature. No, to steal something, you consciously do it. I do. I am under the firm belief that women don't consciously do this. Just like guys, we don't consciously lust and stuff like that in our minds. It's something that we kind of unconsciously do. We'll be, sometimes we're just thinking about sex, about, another girl or something, or, something. If we looked at a Playboy when we were younger, unfortunately, so it'll come in our mind. And we don't want it to come into my mind. A lot of people have talked about just evil thoughts going through their mind. And so I think girls, they don't do it on purpose. This isn't on purpose. Like stealing money is on purpose. You have to plan that out and really think about it. Killing somebody is usually on purpose. You might have a crazy moment of insanity, which does happen, where somebody doesn't even realize they've done something like that. But, this is what happens. So they try to do it. And so what happens is, if a man usually gets emasculated enough, okay, what usually happens in the relationship is men want to keep peace. That's what men want to do. Men don't usually like to get into fights, okay, or into arguments with people, because they realize if they do, somebody could get hurt. And and men's punches hurt. Men's punches really, really hurt. Girls don't mind fights as much because they'll fight with men, because usually they know men aren't going to punch back. Okay. And they know men aren't going to hit them. And girls fights usually can be a little brutal, but they're not as bad as men's fights. So men want to keep peace. They want to keep peace in the household. That's one thing men like. We just want peace in our household. We have to deal with a stressful job outside. We're having to deal with other stressors, like paying taxes, paying the mortgage, mowing the yard. We're having to take care of children. We want to keep peace with our wives. So usually we just give in and allow them to lead when they want to. What happens is when the woman gets into the leadership role, okay, she's now taking on the masculine role. Women are not masculine, women are feminine. Women are designed by God to submit. Men are designed by God to lead. That's the way it does it. So when a woman takes control of the relationship, she's acting masculine, which is against her feminine nature. Okay? So what happens is she thinks she wants this leadership role. So she gets it. Then she has to start acting masculine in the family. The husband is acting feminine. And so they're going against God's rules for the family and society. And what happens is the woman hates that position. It reminds me of the story in the Bible of Amnon and Tamar. Okay? It reminds me of Amnon Amnon and Tamar. Amnon was the son of David. He was in love with he had a very strong, well, he wasn't really in love, but he had a strong lustful desire towards his sister Tamar. Okay? And so what happened was Amnon tricked Tamar to come to his room, and then he rapes her. Okay? Horrible. And then it says at the end, he says, and he hated her afterwards more than he lusted after her. He's like, get her away from me. And Tamar was pleading, like, please let us just get married. You can't let me go. He goes, no, get her out of here now. And in that same way, I'm not saying it's the same, but I'm saying in that same way, the way when Amnon got what he wanted, he realized at the end that he was kind of going against God and he didn't want it anymore. That's the way what happens when women take control of the marriage is when they take control of the marriage, they think they wanted it just like Amnon thought he wanted Tamar, but afterwards they realize they don't want it. They hate it, and then they start having less respect for their husband because their husband has given up their leadership role. And so then the men start wondering the why the intimacy dries up. It's because the woman has lost respect for you. And women and men cannot love each other unless they respect each other. You have to respect each other before love can come about. The Bible even talks about this. It says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Okay? Now, that's not quite the same analogy, but what it's saying is that you have to fear God or respect Him before knowledge comes. That's what you have to do. You have to fear God first. And when you basically acknowledging that He exists, acknowledging you're a sinner before Him, and then when you do that and accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, then God's love comes to you. You have to respect God first and acknowledge your sin, and then the love comes. It's in the same way. Women, if a woman respects a man, then she can love him. If she doesn't respect him, she doesn't love him. Okay, so when a man gives up, and it makes logical sense to men because they just want, because at the time this happened to me, it's happened to lots of men, they just want to keep the peace. They just want to keep the peace. But all women are doing is acting out on their sin nature. And especially if they're not Christian. Now, a lot of Christian women know how to suppress this emasculation, can suppress it, but they will still do it. Just like a man can suppress his lust when he's married to his wife, but it still kind of creeps up every so often. It's pretty, it's pretty, it's pretty regularly for guys. It's hard for guys. We have to, if we go to the beach, we really have to keep our head down. But just like that creeps up on us, it creeps up on women too as well. Okay, that emasculation will. All right, and so this is what's happening. You've gone against there. Women are designed to submit to the man's leadership in the family. When she's not submitting, she's giving orders, she's going against her natural position in the family. We're going to talk about how that affects feminists too, and why they act this way so that you can understand this. All right. And we're just scratching the surface. I've got a lot more to talk about with this. But we're going to talk about the example in the Bible of emasculation next time. And the example of that, the big one that is there, is Ahab. Ahab with Jezebel is an example of a horribly emasculated man whose wife controls everything. And when she's controlling the relationship, she's running the country. The country's in hell. The country is complete hell because she's not supposed to be running that relationship. But anyway, I will end that there. I thank you all for tuning in today. I would just encourage you to like and subscribe to the channel. There's more videos of this to come. I have on my channel a video called Peace with God, the Gospel Message. I encourage you to Share that with anybody that you know that needs to share it with. I've also got a Facebook page, 30-Minute Gospel with Chris, that you can like and follow. And I also have an email, 30minutegospel@gmail.com, if you want to write me. All right. I thank you all again for tuning in, and I will leave you with this. Remember, just as Theodore Roosevelt once said, a thorough knowledge of the Bible is worth more than a college education. God bless you all.